This is our introduction to explain our design process for Glenham Farms Elementary School in Marina, Arizona. Our selection process was initially through a PPP, which is a public-private partnership. The district was looking seriously at that kind of procurement process, but later on they decided to go back to a traditional procurement process and asked us to team up with a firm that already had a contract with the district. The reason for that is the district felt we truly understood what they were looking for, especially looking for a new model, creating a new model for teaching and learning, and also for Paul's special expertise in designing out-of-the-box learning environments. Our approach to designing Glenham Farms Elementary School was very specific. Number one, in understanding in depth what the educational strategy for the district was, but also understanding the very specific community needs. We had just come out of a master plan district-wide process Paul and I had worked on, and so we were very aware of the fine-grained detail for the specific community needs. But we also paid attention in terms of research and figuring out specific furniture that would allow for the flexibility and reconfiguration that the district was looking for in terms of the new teaching and learning strategies, as furniture can be a key part of how a building works.
As Callie indicated, we have a very specific approach to design that is extremely community and school specifically based. The idea that it really is all about teaching and learning. And so our goal is to try and make sure we understand the teaching and learning strategies that the district and the teachers in the specific school utilize. The idea that a teacher and some students will learn. A teacher with students will learn. You have a traditional classroom with a teacher and a group of students, and it's worked for centuries. Will continue to work and be the base of it. On the other hand, how the teacher is able to use that space is really what's at play here. And also how comfortable the students are with the environment that has a certain amount of flexibility. When we first started our discussions with the superintendent, his thought was, this would be a great place to try the idea of having maybe a third, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders all in the same wing, with the idea that there could be some sharing back and forth between the grade levels of mentoring and teaming in different ways. As we talked about this more in detail, it became apparent that the teachers felt as though they had a very good system working at this point in time, where all the teachers at one grade level did a lot of interaction, pulling students in and out, using their classroom to oversee other students, to have sort of this inter-class interaction. And so that became a focus of the direction we were heading. With the development of this single grade level grouping, then it became the natural progression to say, well, okay, then what grade levels should be related to each other? Third and fourth grade, fourth and fifth grade, second grade, third grade. That was a great idea, and everybody seemed to appreciate that. But then when we started drawing this diagram, the discussion became, well, it would be really great if we had classrooms that actually did this, where they were open out so that we could actually go out into the corridor space and actually use that space. That led to the next discussion, which said, well, then there's some confusion when the classes sort of get out in the middle. So what happens if we take the corridor and we split it in two, and the third grade could then go out into this commons area between the classrooms, and the various third grade classrooms could start to interact with pullouts from each of the various classrooms, maybe the kids who are the most advanced kids could actually come out and do a little reading group down in the commons area. And so that idea started to generate some action, and we started then to look at how would that then start to manifest itself into the larger school design. This led to the concept development where the idea that with the corridor split, then the idea that the fourth grade classes, each of the teachers could pick the kids that were the better students or the students that need more help or whatever, and actually have small groups meet in this common space in between. Well, that seemed to gain some traction. Then it became an idea that, well, maybe the wet room or the wet area in each classroom was something that maybe could be commonized. And so we actually started talking about putting a wet area at the end of the corridor on either side, so that as applied learning kind of scenarios happen or art kinds of things happen, they can be done in the wet area that was maybe a little larger than might be in an individual classroom, was accessible to all, and this would allow other students to be able to kind of see what's happening with other classrooms and potentially be excited or enticed by what's happening there. It also led to the idea of a teacher workroom where the teachers from this pod could have a place where they could go grab information, make a copy, do something, or actually have a team meeting within that common pod area. And so that ended up being an area with a glass wall so that the teachers could actually see if they had to go to the teacher workroom to be able to see into each of the other spaces. The swing classroom concept, in case you ended up with an extra need for a fifth grade classroom, there need to be some additional classrooms spaced around within the organization of the school. So in each of the wings, there are a couple of swing classrooms that would allow for that fluctuation in actual numbers of students in each grade level. One of the things that was a common area suggestion was that at the one end of the classroom wing would be a place to put some storage carts so that every teacher didn't have to buy, for example, a set of clocks. They could all contribute into the clock drawer, and that the cart, when they were setting clocks, would be brought out into their classroom or the commons area. The idea then that we needed to try and then make sure that if this was an area that was going to be used as a makerspace or as an outside small group gathering space, etc., that we ended up with a corridor through here because this actually was an exit way. So the idea was that we would actually put in some clouds at the sitting level that would define a space that was the area that you could go to the yellow cloud and have your little reading group, or your discussion thing could happen in the orange cloud. The idea that the clouds gave a subtle definition of the path. It means that each of the students could come out pretty much at liberty and be seen by 4 other teachers or 3 other teachers in this common areas. And so it really just becomes an extension of their classroom. The idea of security, though, became a question mark. And so the idea that the building had an exterior exit at the end of each classroom, but it's a locked security door that could be got out. But a teacher, someone from the district, would have to open the door for others. At this end, the idea of security became a question mark. And so there are drop-down doors that if the office decides that there is some need for security, those doors could be dropped from several locations, and then this whole pod would be secure. But the idea of trying to have the other students, as they came past the pod, be able to see into the pod and see what the other students were doing for building projects or having little presentations, etc., that everybody else could kind of see what's going on. But what they didn't want was the students from other groups to be going back and forth through their space. so that each wing became a fourth and a fifth grade or whatever, and the sixth graders would go on beyond on the outside. So for the overall organization of the school, we developed these classroom pods and classroom wings so that they were 2 stories of classes with kindergarten and first grade on the first floor, and then the upper grades on the upper floors. But they were in wings where the students could flow into the commons area, which was for all school assemblies, for showing presentations, for setting up displays, for a range of sort of common activities, but that the rest of the school didn't end up going through the classroom wings. They would go through the commons area to get to the cafeteria, the music rooms, and to outdoor areas, and the bus, of course. One of the things that where we were going through this process, our compatriots with whom we were working had a different approach to the idea of how to design a school facility. Their concept was to draw a series of floor plan diagrams showing various setups, with the idea that then the school could come back and say, we like this one better than that one, as opposed to trying to build it from the teaching learning process. The difficulty we had with this was we had already had the discussion about the fact that we didn't want to have, or the teachers didn't want to have all the rest of school going through their classroom block on a regular basis. And so the idea that this diagram was provided as one of the solutions the other firm had pointed towards, and we just said, that just absolutely does not comport with the idea that each wing could be visible but not be traversed.
From the early stages of the concept, we started putting together what is called a BIMX model. This was easy to do because we work only in 3D, so we could save our files into this walkable 3D virtual model and show all the changes and all the detail. Because this BIMX model was used as a design tool to communicate with the owner and the contractor, as decisions were being made during the value engineering process for specific finishes, like the size of the tile or the very specific carpet options and the chip color for the clouds. This was incorporated into the BIMX model as well. But we were able to get down to the nitty-gritty details, like the size of the whiteboards, the specific location, down to whether we should cut whiteboards or not in some areas, for instance. But because of the ability to have this BIMX model modified every time we had those discussions, this was a great tool to communicate the exact design intent at that point in time. Because the district wanted to try a new teaching and learning model, the library space was replaced by a media center, but then the library was brought to the kids into each of the wings in rolling carts. So those carts would contain all the materials, all the resources that kids would need specific to their grade level, and then those carts would be stored in a media center that was located in the middle of the school. There is one media center on the top floor, and then another media center that serves the lower grade levels in the first floor. We believe our approach to design provided this K-6 school with enough elements to be flexible, reconfigurable, and allow it to evolve as things change in their educational curriculum and move into a bigger future for the community and their students.